When you hear master plan, what comes to mind? Maybe a big corporate strategy or an architect's drawings.
Or maybe even a coach's game plan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, today we're looking at a master plan with a very specific goal, but it's packed with surprisingly useful ideas for, any big project you might be thinking about.
Right. We're diving into this document, 026 Master Plan for Church Planting. Now, yeah, the focus is specific starting new churches, but the way it lays out the thinking, the strategy, that's relevant if you're launching a business, organizing a community project, anything really complex.
So think of it as like a case study, dissecting how someone plans to achieve something big with probably not unlimited resources.
Exactly, and extracting those universal principles.
So for you, the learner, this isn't about the specific religious angle. It's really a chance to see structure in action. Maybe grab some of those aha moments about planning.
Yeah, how you could apply it yourself.
Our source, that PDF, it's structured around, I think, 6 key areas. Research, prayer, partnerships. What else?
Platforms, evangelism and discipleship, and then, yeah, the church planting itself. It's meant to guide strategy development across all those areas to reach a specific end vision.
And envision. Okay.
And while the whole document covers all that, today we're really zeroing in on the practical engine room, the lists.
Lists.
Yeah, lists of goals, resources, how they plan to turn obstacles into opportunities, the actual action steps, and importantly, how they'll measure success.
Got it. And the document mentions this builds on previous work, like research discussed before.
Exactly. It all connects.
Yeah.
But underpinning everything is that end vision statement.
The North Star, basically. The ultimate destination that guides all the choices.
Precisely. So let's get into it. Starting with the goals. One example they give is plant 10 churches in strategic areas where the people live within 2 years.
Okay, strategic areas where the people live. That part jumps out. It's not just plant 10 churches anywhere.
Right. It's thoughtful. It's targeted.
It makes you think, doesn't it? For any project, where do you put your effort first for the biggest impact? Like market research for a business.
Exactly. And it's measurable, too. 10 churches, 2 years. You know if you're on track.
Okay, what's another goal?
Building on that, another goal is about making them last. Equip these house churches to reproduce and assist them to the 3rd generation.
Reproduce to the 3rd generation. Unpack that a bit.
Well, in this context, it means the churches they plant should be able to plant other churches, and those churches should be able to plant more churches. It's about creating a self-sustaining system.
Ah, okay. So it's not just building things in isolation. It's like empowerment, creating a ripple effect.
You got it. Teaching others to lead and grow so the impact multiplies, like training trainers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's a really practical one. Develop and implement an on-the-job training program for church leaders within the first year.
On-the-job training. So learning by doing, right there in the community.
Hands-on. Immediate application.
That feels important. Practical experience often trumps just theory, doesn't it? Builds capacity from within.
Definitely. And the last goal example is to lead the house churches to develop a network for fellowship and encouragement.
A network. Why is that so important here?
Well, think about it. Starting something new can be isolating.
True.
Whether it's a church, a startup, even a personal goal. Connection helps. Sharing knowledge, getting support, staying motivated.
Like a professional association or even just a peer group. That support system.
Exactly. So those are the kinds of goals they set. Clear, measurable, focused on impact and sustainability.
Okay, so you have the goals. What about the resources needed to actually achieve them?
Good question. The list they provide is interesting. It includes grassroots church planters.
Okay, so people already doing similar work.
Right. Also, existing churches in the area, my personal discipleship group.
Personal connections, too.
Yeah, and also theological education by extension organizations. Those are groups providing training outside traditional settings and other Christian groups that focus on church planting.
That's a really diverse list. Individuals, existing structures, personal networks, specialized organizations.
It is, and that's a key takeaway, isn't it? Look broadly for support. Don't just think of the obvious.
Yeah, sometimes the best help comes from unexpected places.
Yeah.
Or just leveraging the connections you already have.
Absolutely.
Okay, next up in the plan, opportunities from obstacles. I like this mindset. Turning challenges around.
It's very proactive, isn't it? Not just identifying problems, but seeing the potential within them. Resilience.
So what are the examples here?
Okay, first one. Obstacle. There is some resistance to house churches, which, you might expect.
Like?
Opportunity. Find believers and organizations that are supportive and educate others regarding their importance.
So instead of hitting a wall, find allies and work on changing perceptions through education.
Exactly. Turn the resistance into a chance to engage and inform. Have you seen that play out elsewhere?
Oh yeah, like introducing new tech at work, some resist. The opportunity is finding early adopters, maybe providing better training, explaining the why.
Great analogy. The second example, obstacle. Churches are not accustomed to planting new churches since church planters traditionally have done this.
Ah, so it's not part of their usual way of operating.
Right. The opportunity here is patiently train house churches to plant other churches.
Patience and training. So it's about building that capacity long-term within the churches themselves rather than relying only on specialists.
It's that sustainability focus again, empowering the community to drive its own growth. Like a good franchise model, maybe, equipping local owners.
Yeah, that fits. Okay, so we have goals, resources, and a plan for obstacles. Now for the actual action plans, the how-to.
Right, the specific steps. So for that first goal, planting 10 churches, one action is using a harvest field map.
Harvest field map, what's that like?
Well, in this context, it's probably a tool to understand the community visually. Demographics, maybe where existing groups are, areas that seem underserved.
So basically doing your homework, understanding the landscape before you act, like market analysis.
Exactly. Another action for that same goal, train existing church planters and evangelists in simple house church planting and equip them to train house church believers. They call it a house church planting training chain.
Training chain. That sounds like that multiplication idea again. Exponential growth.
Precisely. It's about creating leverage. How might that apply, say, professionally?
Mentorship programs, maybe. Senior folks train junior ones who then train the next wave. Spreading expertise.
Good one.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Building capacity throughout the system.
Okay, what else is in the action plan? They mentioned tracking reproduction.
Yep. Action. Develop a monitoring system for that. You need to know if the reproduction goal is actually happening.
Makes sense. What makes a good monitoring system generally?
Well, first, defining clearly what you're measuring. Church reproduction, in this case. Then, having a consistent way to collect the data and, crucially, a way to analyze it to see what's working, what's not.
Like tracking sales or website visits or project milestones. Measure what matters.
You got it.
What about the leadership training goal?
The action plan there is interesting. First, ask groups that do on-the-job training, whether we can use their materials.
Resourceful.
Yeah.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right. But then, if not, develop our own on-the-job training process. So adaptability, too.
Look for existing tools, adapt if needed, build if you have to. Practical.
They also plan to train all house church leaders and church planters in Bible storytelling and teach them to obey Bible study method.
Okay, specific techniques or tools they believe are effective for communication.
Exactly. Like equipping any team with the right methodologies for their job, whether it's sales techniques or coding frameworks.
And they mentioned connecting with local culture.
Yes. Action. Develop and introduce indigenous music for the churches.
Why is that cultural piece important?
It makes it relatable, right? Increases engagement, helps people feel it belongs to them, not something imposed from outside.
Like localized marketing or software interfaces.
Yeah.
Tailoring it.
Yeah. And related to that is another action. Work with church planters and church leaders to contextualize the church.
Contextualize. What does that mean here?
It means adapting how church is expressed, maybe worship style, communication methods to fit the local culture without changing the core beliefs. Again, it's about making it relevant and effective in that specific environment.
Tailoring the approach.
Yeah.
Got it. And the network, how do they plan to build that?
Concrete steps. Assist churches in developing a network. Every 3 months, plan a joint program where house churches can come together.
So regular, scheduled interaction. Intentional community building.
Precisely. Not just hoping it happens, but making it happen.
And there were a couple more tracking actions.
Yeah, tracking leader training geographically to make certain that no areas are overlooked. And tracking church multiplication comprehensively to ensure that every village and community has a house church.
So thoroughness. Making sure the plan covers the whole target area and they know where they stand.
Right. Accountability and staying focused on that big end vision.
Okay, that leads naturally into the evaluative processes, how they measure success.
And it's pretty straightforward, flowing right from the goals and actions. They plan on tracking the number of leaders trained, and their working areas.
Connects directly to the training goals and the geographical tracking action,
Exactly. And the other key one, tracking church multiplication and reproduction.
which measures that core goal of sustainable generational growth.
Yep. Measure what matters. Are we achieving what we set out to do? It's fundamental.
So the plan wraps up with a section called the decision and movement. Feels like a shift in tone.
It does. It's really a call to action. It uses this metaphor about learning to fish more effectively and warns against just doing what's easy or familiar, even if you know there's a better way.
That inertia we all feel sometimes. Sticking to routines, even when we've learned something new that could be more effective.
Exactly that challenge. It's easy to learn, harder to implement.
Then they defined the church planting movement.
Yeah.
You mentioned multiple reproduction earlier. What about the indigenous churches part? Why is that significant?
Indigenous here means self-led, self-supporting, self-propagating. Churches run by the local people, for the local people, using local resources.
So not dependent on outsiders long term. That sounds crucial for sustainability.
Absolutely. It's about planting seeds that can truly take root and spread on their own within that culture.
And the aim is reaching every individual in a specific people group. That sounds ambitious.
It is. It underlines that clear focus and the comprehensive nature of the goal. Maximum reach within their target community.
And then there's that quote they include, William Carey.
Yeah, expect great things from God, attempt great things for God.
Powerful. It feels like an encouragement to think big, but also to actually do something bold. Vision and action.
That's it, exactly. Don't just dream, attempt.
And the document ends by framing this work as part of Acts 29.
Right. Acts in the Bible has 28 chapters, so Acts 29 is this idea of the story continuing, being part of an ongoing movement of growth and impact.
Gives it a sense of bigger purpose, historical connection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, we've walked through a really systematic plan. Vision, goals, resources, anticipating obstacles, concrete actions, evaluation. It's all connected.
And the fascinating part, learner, is how you can adapt these ideas. Think about your own master plan, maybe professional, maybe personal. What's your end vision?
What are your goals? What resources do you have? Maybe some you haven't thought of.
What obstacles might pop up? How could you maybe turn them into opportunities?
And crucially, what are the specific action steps you'll take? How will you know if you're succeeding?
Which brings us back to that final challenge in the document.
Right. Now will we take what we have learned and implement it? That gap between knowing and doing.
It's the critical step, isn't it? Learning is valuable, but the real results come from putting it into practice.
So maybe the final thought for you is just that. What's one thing from this framework you can actually implement in your own work, your own goals?
Take that encouragement. Expect great things, sure, but also attempt great things. We hope this look at planning gives you some concrete ways to start attempting.